My hometown is small and boring, the kind of place where people either move to the big city after high school or they fall down a long and dirty spiral of addiction, criminality, and despair. In my short life, I've grown to love traveling. The open road fills me with wonder. I can't help but imagine what it would be like to live somewhere else, from the red rock beauty of Sedona to the cozy alpine ambience of Helen, Georgia. My parents wanted me to see a whole world of possibilities from an early age, and I lapped it up. I've always wanted to be a truck driver when I grew up, someone out there roaming the countryside, never tied down, forever free, a rolling stone that gathers no moss. But things changed recently. My travels have taken a very dark turn, and it all began at a rest stop. I probably visited more rest stops in my short life than most adults. I've seen every kind, from elaborate state-sponsored welcome centers to sprawling truck stations with diners and convenience stores, to the basic, unmanned ones that pepper all the highways and byways of this strange land. My story begins 2 years ago at one such small, unassuming rest stop nestled in the Appalachian foothills. We had been on the road for 4 hours straight, and my bladder was about to burst, so we made a short pee break at a rest stop. After relieving myself, I decided to stretch my legs and take a walk around the heavily wooded property. The endless forests surrounding the area were dark and vine-choked. It was the dead of summer. The air as thick as molasses and choked with gnats and mosquitoes. I imagined what it would be like to live in such an impenetrable wilderness. Supposedly, there were still some moonshiners deep in the mountains living off the grid. And that's when I got the strangest feeling, almost like deja vu. The hairs on the back of my neck shot up, and then I turned around and I saw him for the first time. The boy looked a lot like me. He was short, pale, and freckly with light brown curls atop his head. He was a few years younger and wore a cool t-shirt with a velociraptor on it, my favorite dinosaur. The design was from the original Jurassic Park, which my father showed me when I was way too young, sparking my love for the franchise. "Hi," I said, waving. The boy didn't respond. He just stared at me for an awkward beat before running off towards the parking lot and disappearing behind some cars. Weird kid, I thought. And that was the end of it. The whole encounter was brief but unremarkable. In fact, I would have forgotten all about Velociraptor T-shirt, as I called him, had I not seen him at a different rest stop in Kansas a week later. I spotted the boy while perusing the vending machine for a Dr. Pepper. He was by himself again, standing on the outskirts of the parking lot, staring at the endless cornfields on either side of the highway. He wore the same Velociraptor t-shirt. I started to walk towards him, but my mother called me back to the car. "Dash, let's go." As I ran back to the Subaru, Dr. Pepperless, I felt that same electric shock on the back of my neck. I didn't turn around, but I knew what was happening. The boy was watching me again. Summer ended and I went back to school, hung out with my friends, joined the soccer team, played video games. Life went on. I forgot all about Raptor t-shirt. Was it weird that I saw the same boy at 2 different rest stops so many states apart? I mean, I suppose. But maybe his family had just taken a similar route on a similar road trip. Stranger things have happened. I didn't dwell on it much. No, that's a lie. I didn't dwell on it at all. Not until the holidays came around. That's when everything changed. We traveled to Michigan to visit my grandparents for Thanksgiving. It was blisteringly cold, snow falling in blinding sheets. On such trips, we limited our breaks to rest stops with large indoor complexes, restaurants, and convenience stores. It was too cold for the small ones with their mostly open-air facilities. We visited a mega truck stop on our way up to Ann Arbor. Inside, I passed a big bulletin board. It was stuffed with all sorts of ads and banners. Visit Sleeping Bear Dunes. Buy Pennzoil. Help stop trafficking. But one poster caught my attention above all else. Missing persons. It took up half the bulletin board and showed dozens of faces, names, ages, height, weight, last known location, and date of disappearance. I had seen countless posters like it at other rest stops across the country and barely glanced at them, but this one made me stop dead in my tracks. There was a Velociraptor t-shirt, smack dab in the middle of the poster. His name was Michael Winkins, aka Mikey, age 13. Last seen at a rest stop outside of Phoenix on October 13th, 2009. Holy shit, I said, moving closer to examine the entry. The poster included an age progression, showing Mikey with wrinkles and thinning hair. He's a ghost, I thought. It was the only possible explanation. But why would a ghost focus on me? Who or what had killed him? And was that same danger headed my way? Dash! I nearly jumped out of my skin. Dad grabbed me by the shoulder. I've been looking all over for you. Your mom grabbed us a table at Maggie's Diner. Come on. He had to tear me away from the poster. What are you looking at? The missing persons? I was just checking it out, I said sheepishly. Why? You recognize somebody on there? My dad asked. No, I said after a slight pause, hoping my dad didn't realize my lie. Well, if you ever do, just tell me, okay? Dad said. I'll handle it. Yeah, I know. My parents were always trying to get me to open up more. They said I spent too much time inside, scrolling Reddit on my phone or playing Minecraft on the computer. It was another reason why they brought me on so many trips, to get me to meet new people, to try new things, open up. Truth is, I liked being alone. I daydreamed about running away to live in almost every cool or interesting place that we had visited on our road trips. In each fantasy, I was living on my own. I don't know why I felt this way. I guess I envied the freedom of a lone wolf. Probably because my parents helicoptered over me so much, never letting me spend the night at my friends' houses, calling every hour to see when I would be home, tracking my social media. There you are. My mother stood up from the booth as Dad and I entered Maggie's Diner. She looked worried. We had been looking all over for you. You need to be careful at big rest stops like this, she said. It's easy to get lost. After that day, I decided that I would approach Mikey if I ever saw him again. If he were a ghost, there had to be a reason that I could see him. Perhaps he wanted me to solve his murder. Solving a cold case would be awesome. My friends and I all listened to true crime podcasts. We were obsessed with any unsolved ones because we could act like detectives. We would spend hours spinning elaborate theories about potential murderers, alternate causes of death, or people vanishing on purpose. 6 months later, I got my wish. My family was on another summer road trip. Mom wanted to visit sunny Southern California, see Los Angeles, Disneyland, the San Diego Zoo, and so on. We were on our way there when we took a break at a massive truck stop, smack dab in the middle of the Arizona desert. There were so many big rigs around the place that you couldn't even see the facilities until you were right on top of them. My dad gassed up the Subaru while I washed the car with one of those squeegee things, scraping 500 miles worth of bug guts off the windshield, the front grille, and bumper. Afterward, I told him that I was going to hit the restrooms. Okay, but be back quick, my dad said. We're losing daylight and we want to be in Phoenix before nightfall." I nodded and kept going. The rest stop was huge and packed with travelers, mostly big and greasy truckers or harried parents, struggling to keep their toddlers in check. There were multiple fast food restaurants, a convenience store, and plenty of restrooms. They even had one with showers. As I left the men's room, I saw Mikey standing by some floor-to-ceiling windows, staring at the endless desert beyond. "Mikey?" I said as if he were some old friend. The boy didn't respond. I stepped closer, close enough to reach out and touch him. Mikey spun around to see me, surprised. I got that tingly feeling on the back of my neck again. "Do you need help?" I asked. Mikey opened his mouth but stopped himself. He looked frightened and perhaps a little confused, and then he muttered 2 words in a hoarse voice, like he hadn't spoken in years. "Go away." "What?" The boy didn't respond. Mikey ran outside the building. "Hey!" I chased after him. "Don't follow me." Mikey called out as he sprinted through a maze of big rigs parked on the sprawling lot. The boy weaved through them like he was following a secret trail that only he knew. He moved around objects like he was real, ducking beneath the truck trailers, squeezing between parked SUVs. But nobody seemed to notice him. No one except me. "Why are you following me?" I asked, still chasing Mikey. "You keep showing up at these rest stops." I started to fear that I was the victim of some elaborate prank. Mikey didn't respond. He just kept running, trying to lose me. But his short strides were no match for my long legs. I finally caught up with the boy amid a series of boulders on an island in the parking lot. Someone had set up a small camp in the area. There was a tattered tent, an old folding chair, and a discarded cooler. The campsite was hidden from the rest stop, a secret canyon amid all the chaos of travelers. I grabbed my knees, sucking in air. And ghost or not, this boy was fast. "What do you want?" Mikey asked. "What do I want? What do you want?" I asked. "You're the one who keeps showing up wherever I go." "I don't mean to," Mikey said. What the hell does that mean? I thought. "Are you a ghost?" I asked. "I saw your missing persons poster." "Not quite," Mikey said. "Look, I can't explain right now. You should leave." Was I dreaming? Was this a heat-induced hallucination? "Why do I need to leave?" I asked. "Because it's not safe around me," Mikey said. "You should be with your parents." "No one out there saw you except for me," I said, trying to wrap my head around the situation. "Oh, just drop it," Mikey said. "Go back to your Subaru, continue on your trip to LA. Forget that you ever saw me." "Wait, how do you know that?" I said. "You are following me." Mikey pushed me back. "I said leave." I almost toppled over, catching myself on a nearby boulder. Guess the boy wasn't a ghost after all. "Are you spying on me?" Mikey's eyes suddenly bulged. He stared at something behind me. I felt cold, icy cold. And then a hand clamped over my face, muffling my screams for help. The hand was massive, covered in a rubber glove that smelled of dirt and engine oil. I never saw its owner. I didn't see anything after that. Darkness. When I awoke, I was lying in the back seat of a sedan. I think it was a Volvo. The first thing that I saw was him, sitting behind the wheel. "I'm sorry," Mikey said. "I tried to warn you." I shot up, adrenaline pumping. "What? Did you kidnap me?" But I didn't wait for an answer. I just opened the side door, which was left unlocked. It was nighttime outside. A full moon illuminated the desert landscape. "Mom! Dad!" I cried out, running through the parking lot. There were dozens of police cars parked at the rest stop, but my Subaru was gone. "They left me?" I said aloud. "They left me!" I ran to the nearest officer, a burly man who was checking out the vending machines. "Hey, I've been kidnapped. There's this boy and somebody grabbed me and..." The cop didn't so much as glance in my direction, no matter how loud I spoke. I tried grabbing his arm, but my hand just passed right through him. The officer continued speaking with his fellow cops about a missing boy named Dash Bowman. "Hey, that's me," I said, jumping up and down. Still no response from the police. Apparently, there was a statewide search for me. My family was down the road at the Hopi Motel, where the police had set up a base of operations. I pulled up my cell phone and tried calling my mom, but the thing was just a glass brick. No power, nothing. "Help!" I screamed to no avail. Since none of the bozo cops were paying attention to me, I decided to run to the motel myself and reunite with my parents. But as soon as I got a few feet from down the dusty highway, there was a bright flash, and I was suddenly running towards another rest stop in a heavily wooded area of the Northeast. A nearby sign proclaimed 10 miles to Burlington. Burlington? I had been before. It was in freaking Vermont. I had just traveled hundreds of miles in a millisecond. There were a few cars at this new rest stop, some families on a road trip. I yelled at them for attention, but they ignored me just like the cops did. "It won't matter." I spun around. Mikey was right behind me. I no longer got that tingly feeling when I saw him, but my mind burned with rage. "What the hell did you do?" I shoved him backwards, just like he did in Arizona. Mikey fell flat back. "I tried to warn you," he said teary-eyed. "What the hell is this? What's happening?" "You're stuck here," Mikey said, wiping his nose. "With me." "What do you mean stuck? At this rest stop?" "At all rest stops," Mikey said. "I've been here since 2009, sometimes with other kids, and most of the time by myself. I don't know who came up with the name, but it's older than my time here. We call this place The Waiting." "The Waiting?" "Yeah, you can only visit rest stops. Anytime you try to leave one, you'll just end up at another one somewhere else in the country. Sometimes it's the next stop down the road. Sometimes it's clear across the country like here." I took a deep breath, hoping beyond all hope that this was just some horrible nightmare. I pinched myself, slapped my face, but I didn't wake up. And then I asked the question that had been burning a hole in my brain for the past 15 minutes. "Am I dead?" "I don't think so," Mikey said. "'Cause with a name like The Waiting, it sure sounds like I'm dead, waiting for the great beyond," I said. "It's not as simple as being a ghost," Mikey said. "Here, let me show you." He brought me to the rest stop building where a series of vending machines lay. The boy pressed a few buttons and an ice-cold Coca-Cola tumbled into the collection bucket. Mikey grabbed it and twisted the top. Fizz. He sipped some of the Coke and then offered it to me. "Try it. You can eat and drink anything you want. Nobody ever seems to notice when we take something." I took the Coke and made a tentative sip. It tasted just like the 20,000 or so that I had had before. "Did you pay?" "Nope, it's all free," Mikey said, grinning. "All you can eat, all you can drink." I gave the Coke back to him. "So we can still interact with this world, just not any people." "Yep," Mikey said. "If the weather's bad at one rest stop, you just go to another where it's better. You can eat and drink whatever. There's always a working restroom nearby. You never grow fat or old. It's kind of like Neverland." Yeah, screw it up, Neverland, I said. And then my eyes fell upon an ancient device that I had never even bothered to notice before. There were very few left in the world, but the fact that one was at this rest stop seemed to be a sign. It was a payphone. I ran over to it and grabbed the receiver. But when I put it to my ear, all I heard was an ear-splitting shriek of static. Ow! You can't call anyone, Mikey said. Believe me, I've tried many times, and this was back when payphones were everywhere. He chuckled. I hung up the phone, sighing, and then I remembered what had happened the moment before I had passed out. That giant rubbery hand that had grabbed me from behind. Mikey, I asked, who put us here? Mikey's smile vanished in an instant. Don't worry about them, he said. I won't let them touch us again. Them? The red Gumbies, Mikey said. The red what? Red Gumbies. We called them that because they wear these thick rubber suits that make them look like Gumby, only red. Blood red, Mikey said. Is that who grabbed me? A guy in a red rubber suit, I shivered. What did he do? Nothing. They only touched you, but I pulled you away before anything else could happen. Anything else? What do you mean by anything else? Mikey didn't answer. You had already passed out once they had touched you, which meant that you were now part of this world. But I could still keep us safe. I've gotten really good at losing the red Gumbies over the years. I pulled you into a nearby car and drove from one rest stop to another, then another and another, and so on, until I was certain that they had given up the chase. By then, I had ended up right back where I had started. So that's why I woke up in the backseat of a car, I asked. Yeah, Mikey said. Driving's the best way to lose them. What if they come back? I asked. We'll know if they're coming. The air gets really cold and you see this black tanker truck. No one notices the truck or the Gumbies except for us, and they're the only ones who can see us in the waiting. When you see that truck coming, dash, run, don't stop, don't look back. Just get to the next rest stop as fast as you can. What will they do if they take us? Mikey didn't respond. He stared at the horizon. Let's go somewhere down south. Somewhere warmer. Living in the waiting wasn't so bad, at least at first. Mikey and I stole as much junk food and as many sodas as our little bodies could handle. We would just punch in the number and the machine spat out anything that we wanted, free of charge. Pretzels, Sprite, M&Ms, Dr. Pepper, Snickers, Doritos. At the bigger truck stops, we could steal real food. Cooks would place whole meals on diner counters, and we would snatch them right in front of the wait staff. They never noticed. Mikey was right. No matter how much we ate or drank, we never changed. We gained no weight, we never grew taller. We never aged, period. Aside from eating, we stole lots of cars and motorcycles. Land Rovers, Ford F-150s, Harley Davidsons, a Rolls Royce or two, even semi-trucks. At 15, I already had my learner's permit and had driven my father's Subaru a bunch of times, so I was somewhat well-versed in handling vehicles. But my stint in the waiting made me an expert. Having all the time in the world and so many cars available for the taking allowed me to learn all the ins and outs of anything with wheels and a motor. The first car that I stole in the waiting was a Corvette Z06. The driver had stepped out to throw up in the parking lot. Must have been car sick or maybe drunk driving. Either way, he left the driver's side door wide open. I jumped in and pulled out of the lot, tires screeching. "See you in hell, suckers!" I screamed as I drove away from the rest stop. The driver didn't notice. Drivers never noticed as we got behind the wheel. No cops ever stopped us either. It was exhilarating. For a few minutes at least. We couldn't drive more than a couple of 100 meters before that same bright flash brought us to another rest stop, and another rest stop, and another and another. The constant shift became disorienting and then nauseating. That's why Mikey often walked from one location to the next if we were traveling, unless we needed to escape the Gumbies, of course. We usually slept in tents and sleeping bags, which we carried in heavy rucksacks like we were backpacking across the country. We stole the gear from a camper van at one of the rest stops. Sometimes we would sleep on benches or even on the ground if it was a warm night, staring up at the stars. They seemed to shine much brighter in the waiting. We mostly wore the same clothes, but there was always a bathroom available to wash up, and some rest stops even had showers. If a thunderstorm or a blizzard broke out, we would just head for a different rest area that had bright, sunny skies. We were the masters of our secret domain, answering to no one but ourselves, and our unseen enemy. And now and then I would ask Mikey about the Red Gumbies, but he rarely elaborated on the subject other than to say, "Run." "I won't let them catch us again," Mikey said one day. "Is that what happened to the other kids in the waiting?" I asked. "The ones who are gone now. The Red Gumbies got them." Mikey nodded, solemn. "What do they want?" I asked. "Why take us?" Let's get some sleep, Dash," Mikey said, crawling into his sleeping bag. "We can discuss this another time." He said that a lot whenever I started digging into the Gumby subject. Anytime I brought them up, it triggered a great deal of anxiety in Mikey. I could only imagine how traumatic it had been to see dozens of other kids fall victim to these supernatural intruders over the years. Our freedom was fun, but it grew old, and time flew by. A month had already passed in the real world, but it felt like only a couple of days in the waiting. Everywhere we went, everything was rushed. The people, the cars, the weather. In and out and back on the road again. It was like our perception was tied to the liminal spaces that we now inhabited. "We call it life at high speed," Mikey said. "Everyone who becomes trapped here feels the same way." "I'm surprised it's been almost 2 decades for me," he said. "I saw signs that my parents were searching for me, but I never saw them or anybody else that I knew. There were posters at the rest stop where I disappeared with a $50,000 reward for anyone who found me. I wondered if I could collect that money if I somehow made it out of the waiting. I really missed home, and I kept asking Mikey about ways to escape. What if we dug underground? You'll just end up underground at another rest stop. How about driving really fast, a pedal to the floor? I tried that, it did nothing. Hiding in the back of someone's car while they drive off. I tried that too. It seemed every idea that I came up with, no matter how outlandish, Mikey or one of his old companions had already tried it, and they got nowhere new. But I finally stumbled upon something that Mikey hadn't tried before. As we were eating eggs and bacon from a greasy spoon diner at a truck stop, a random thought popped into my head. "How do you know if you've been to every rest stop in the country?" I asked. Mikey paused a moment, sipping his coffee. "I mean, after all these years." "Yeah, but have you or any of the others ever created a map or a list of all the places?" I asked. Mikey scrunched up his face, thinking, and then he shook his head. "We should make a map of all the rest stops in the waiting," I offered, "and check off each one that we visit." "Why do that?" "Well, 'cause maybe one of these places has a way out," I said, "or something else that could lead to a way out." "What makes you think there'd be anything like that?" Mikey asked. "I don't know," I said, pushing my scrambled eggs around the plate. "I have no idea what we might find, but it'll give us a good starting point. My dad used to say, you never really know a place until you've mapped it out, whether it's uncharted territory or your own hometown. I think there's still more that you don't know about the waiting even after all these years, because you've never seen it all laid out before. Mikey finished his cup of coffee. A wide smile creased his face. From then on, Mikey and I had a mission. I tore down a missing persons poster with my face on it and used the back as a blank sheet to start our map. And we both stole some pens and pencils from a tourist info office in Colorado. I drew the map. I had a pretty decent hand from years of making my own little comics as a kid, while Mikey named each rest stop. The Great Waiting Map, as we called it, was a massive undertaking. We picked a single direction and kept going straight, stopping only to sleep and eat. There were thousands of rest stops to catalog, some of which Mikey had never seen before, or at least he couldn't even remember visiting them. At each location, I would draw a unique or notable feature: a Paul Bunyan statue at the entrance, a kiosk on Coyotes, a busted vending machine, and show how it connected to nearby rest stops. Finding unique features was hard at most locations. We had to pick things like the number of parking spots or a funny-looking cactus near the facilities. I also learned a lot about people on this mission. We saw so many at the places we visited, from all walks of life. I realized that most of us have some level of anxiety, running behind on a trip, leaving something important back at home, work issues, relationship issues, and so on. Mostly I saw how lonely people were, whether traveling alone or in a large group on a tourist bus. Everyone was glued to their iPhones or tablets, lost in their own little world, just waiting to get to their next destination. Man, I really miss my folks. I told Mikey one day after we had stopped for a snack break at a rest stop in Kansas. I hated to think of them. I knew that my mom would be an absolute wreck. She grew paranoid if I texted her back a half hour late. And my dad was probably drinking himself into an early grave, blaming himself for letting me wander on my own at that big truck stop. They probably both feared the worst. You know, I can't even remember my parents, Mikey said. Like I know who they are, but I can't picture them anymore. When I try to picture their faces, it's just a blank. He looked at me teary-eyed again. You think they still miss me? Of course they do, I said. And they'll never forget you. They probably think about you every single day. Really, after all these years? Absolutely. I excused myself to go to the restroom and burst into a sob that lasted close to an hour. The map catalog was a slow, cumbersome process, but it felt good. It felt like we were getting somewhere, even though we didn't know the destination. This is pointless, Mikey said one day, looking worn down. The damn map will never end. Hey, there are only so many rest stops, I told him. And besides, each new one is another step closer to finding a way out. You still believe that? Mikey asked. Hey, there's no proof that we're stuck here, I said. For all we know, the next rest stop will show us a way out. Mikey just laughed. The next rest stop would be his last. It was a bright sunny day. Mikey and I had just arrived at a way station in the middle of the New Mexico desert, not far from Roswell. There were no cars in the lot, no people lounging around, nothing for miles in any direction. It was unusually cold for the location and the time of day. The last 4 rest stops that we had cataloged were in the desert, and each one was hotter than the last. Now I was practically shivering. Why is it so cold? I asked soon after we had arrived. We stopped behind a tiny adobe building to get out of the wind. It was the only building on the lot. Mikey was shivering even more than I. He looked around, wide-eyed. This isn't right, he said in a low voice, almost like a whisper. Why? What is it? I asked. Mikey's face grew ashen. It's them. The cobalt blue sky suddenly darkened, as if a thin haze had settled over the atmosphere. In seconds, the midday sunlight turned into twilight darkness. I spun around. A vast, inky cloud filled the air. It rose from a jet-black semi-truck barreling down the highway. The truck appeared small at first, just a black blob on the horizon. But that blob grew bigger by the second. It was driving over 100 miles per hour. "Run!" Mikey shouted. We bolted for the opposite edge of the rest stop, and by now I could hear the animalistic growl of the truck's massive engine. We were almost at the property's edge, 10 steps away, and then the bright flash. Arriving at another desolate rest stop a dozen miles away, the sun was still shining, no inky menace in the bright blue skies. I welcomed the oppressive desert heat, feeling elated. But that elation disappeared the moment that I turned around. Mikey was gone. I was alone at the new rest stop. I should have kept running. It was what both of us had decided to do if the other were taken. "Don't stop, don't even look back," Mikey had said. "Just get to the next rest stop as fast as you can." But I couldn't keep going. Mikey had become my only friend left in the world, my lifeline to sanity. Perhaps I could still drag him with me into safety. I went back. Flash. It was pitch dark at the previous rest stop. "Mikey?" I called out. I could barely see the adobe structure amid all the thick black smoke from the tanker truck. But this didn't feel like regular smoke, the kind that scratches your throat and makes you cough. This smoke felt like cold mist and made me calm in a strange and sleepy way. "Mikey," I said again lower. The tanker truck's rumbling engine was so loud that it shook the ground. I was close to the vehicle, very close, too close. "Mike, are you there?" I whispered. And that's when I first saw them, flashes in the darkness. They intermittently appeared as smoke billowed around the oily truck. I stopped dead in my tracks, hiding behind a nearby trash can, peering at the strange visitors. There were 3 of them. Mikey was right. They looked a lot like Gumby, only much bigger and blood red. Their rubbery, humanoid shapes were all wobbly and misshapen. Were they wearing suits, or was that their skin? I wondered. It was hard to tell from the brief glimpses that I caught as the smoke moved in and out of the way. The Gumbies had their backs turned when I saw them. They crowded around Mikey, who lay face down on the asphalt beside the tanker truck, his eyes half-lidded. He didn't seem so frightened, more like confused or drugged. The red Gumbies grabbed a series of oily black tubes from the tanker truck's side. Each tube had an accordion shape, like you would see on an old vacuum. The strange beings placed these sucker ends of these accordion tubes on Mikey's body, his legs, his back, his head. Each tube connected with a loud and sudden noise. They attached a half-dozen of them to the helpless boy, and then one of the red Gumbies pulled a big greasy lever beneath the truck's tank. The tubes started wriggling like giant black worms. Mikey's body contorted as the tubes sucked something out of him. Blood, guts. I couldn't see what it was. Soon his body began to shrink, deflating like a balloon with tiny pinprick holes in it. Mikey groaned. His insides were melting away, disappearing into that big black tank atop the truck, becoming some sort of obscene fuel. "Stop!" I shouted. I said it without even thinking of the consequences. A reflex. A stupid decision. But I couldn't bear to watch my only friend left in the world die before me. All 3 Gumbies turned my way. and I finally got a good look at their faces. They were not wearing suits. Their heads were just big red rubber squares with no mouth or nose, only eyes that contained multitudes, writhing, infinite, eyes like miniature black holes. I could hardly look at them. Mikey and I shared a glance in that moment. The boy was barely conscious now, his body flattening against the pavement. "Run," he whimpered. Seconds later, he was nothing more than a pile of skin and clothes lying on the ground. I bolted in the opposite direction, headed for the edge of the rest stop. But before I made it to the property line, a pair of strong, rubbery hands grabbed my shoulders. One of the red Gumbies had snatched me. The creature's oily stench made me dizzy, and then the creature spoke inside my head, its voice like a humming radiator.
"Do you want to go home?"
it asked. I could only nod in agreement. Tears clouded my vision, my whole body was shaking.
"Then bring us another like you, and we'll grant you your freedom."
The creature pushed me forward. There was a bright flash and I fell on some warm desert sand and passed out. For a long, long time. I woke sometime later, days, months, years. I was at the same rest stop, only now it was a typical day again. Bright sunshine above, no black smoke, no tanker truck. The desert heat had returned. And so too had all the motorists, zipping along the highway always in a hurry, oblivious to any cosmic horrors lurking on the horizon. I slowly got to my feet, dusting myself off. I searched the area for any lingering sign of Mikey, the black tanker truck, or the red Gumbies, but there was none. It was as if the whole experience had been some horrible nightmare.
"Bring us another like you."
Were they telling the truth? Would such an act really free me from this prison? I shuddered to think what those rubbery monsters would do to the new kid if I even found one. I stayed at that rest stop for days afterwards, not eating, barely drinking, and mostly crying. Would I simply die if I stopped doing anything, I wondered? Would my body turn into a dried up husk? Would it finally free me from this hell? But another stronger thought rose out of my depression. You have a map to finish, Dash. The great map of the waiting. Mikey and I had already cataloged over 300 rest stops, and there were many, many more to go. One of them might still be a way out. Instead of wallowing in despair, I plunged my remaining energy into continuing the map. I owed it to Mikey. If nothing else, I would leave behind a record of our time in this strange place for the next unfortunate soul to find themselves stuck here. Maybe it would help. I visited so many new places. I had to grab a stack of posters to continue building out the map, taping them together along the edges. It grew into this massive tapestry of drawings with so many crisscrossing lines that it looked like a madman's murder board. Even with my busy schedule, the loneliness never left. In fact, it only grew worse. There was no one to share in any of my latest discoveries. From a rest stop with the world's largest potato statue to one shaped like a giant alligator. I started talking to myself, pretending that Mikey was still there with me. This would be a good place to visit in the winter, right, Mikey? Wow, I've never seen a vending machine that only sold Fanta. We can see the Grand Canyon from here. Isn't that incredible? But no matter the view, it was never as exciting as seeing it with someone else. I was at a rest stop in upstate New York when it happened. Beautiful fall weather, an apple orchard grew nearby, not at the rest stop but right next to it. One of the tree's branches hung over the property line, and a big red, juicy apple dangled from its tip. It had been ages since I had last tasted fresh fruit. Everything had been processed junk food from a vending machine or a heavy meal from a greasy diner. I was on my tippy toes trying to snatch the fruit when I heard her soft voice. "Hey, are you Dash?" I fell over in shock, crushing my folded up map. When I looked up, I saw the prettiest girl that I had ever seen. She was about my age with long auburn hair and big brown eyes. It took me a moment to realize that she was actually looking at me and not through me like all the others. And then I became very self-conscious, smoothing my hair with my hands. "What?" I stammered. "Are you Dash Bowman?" the girl asked. She stayed put as if she didn't want to scare me away. "Yes," I said. "You can see me, hear me." The girl nodded. "I'm Trisha," she said. "I've seen you at a few rest stops before, and I've seen your poster." "Call the police, tell them," but I stopped myself. Tell the cops what? That I'm stuck in another dimension where tall rubber monsters suck the life out of kids, and only this girl can see me. No one would believe that story. Even I had trouble believing it. "It's okay," Trisha said. "I've seen others like you." "Others like me?" I asked. "Ghosts," Trisha said. "But I'm not a ghost," I said. I could still eat, I could still drink and piss and shit, but that wouldn't make any sense to her. This girl was looking at me the same way that I looked at Mikey at that fateful truck stop in Arizona. A lost soul. "You said you've seen others like me," I asked. "Yes, like at rest stops." I hadn't even noticed the chill in the air yet. "No," Trisha said, "but sometimes when I'm at certain places, they come to me, seeking help." "What happened to these other ghosts?" I asked. It had grown darker. Was the sun setting already? "I helped them remember who they were and where they came from," Trisha explained, "so they can find peace." It was much colder now. Black smoke curled into the sky. The tanker truck was on its way, barreling toward the rest stop.
"Bring us another like you."
Trisha was still watching me, waiting for me to respond. I didn't have to do anything. My job was already complete. Somehow I had lured in another victim. All I had to do was wait for them to arrive and then...
"And we'll grant you your freedom,"
the red Gumbies had said. But how could anyone trust them? A terrifying thought occurred to me then. Those creatures had almost certainly made the same promise to Mikey before my arrival, and they had probably promised the kid before him and the kid before, and so on. All those lonely children desperate for a way home. There's no way those monsters would honor such a promise, even if it were possible. They were too greedy. They only wanted more fuel no matter who it was. And if there was ever someone who didn't deserve to be fuel, it was a kind soul like her. "Listen, Trisha, I'm not like the others," I said, backing away from her. "I don't need your help. Go back to your family, get out of here. Forget you ever saw me." "What?" Trisha walked towards me. "You just asked me to call the police moments ago." "You don't understand, I'm not like the others," I said. There was a loud hiss. Air brakes. The tanker truck had just pulled into the rest stop. Cold mist-like smoke filled the area. But Trisha noticed none of this. It was still a bright autumn day to her. "I want to help you," she said. I could see the blood-red crown of one of the Gumby's rubbery heads bobbing behind the rest stop building, headed our way. "You can't help. Get away from me." But Trisha kept moving closer, worried. "What's wrong?" Trish, a man's voice called out. "Are you still in the bathroom? We gotta go." "Is that your dad?" I asked. "Go to him, get out of here now." "Oh, he's always fussing over nothing," Trisha said. "My parents hover over me too much." I groaned. This was getting nowhere. I needed to do something else if I were to save this girl from my fate. Something drastic. Just as those long rubbery legs appeared from behind the rest stop, a new idea shot into my head. A crazy one. I handed my folded up map to Trisha. "Here, take this. Tell my parents that I love them." My heart leapt when I realized that Trisha could hold the map. Perhaps I could get a message out to the world after all. But there was no time now. All three Gumbies had rounded the corner of the rest stop building. I ran headlong towards them. "This way," I shouted. "Where are you going?" Trisha asked. I ducked beneath one of the creature's long legs as I ran around the side of the truck stop. All three Gumbies turned in my direction away from Trisha, who was probably super confused by now. I kept looking over my shoulder at the tall rubbery monsters, making sure that they were following me. They didn't seem angry or scared, more curious than anything else. I ran beneath a kiosk, squeezed between some parked cars, and then across the parking lot and beelined for one vehicle, the black tanker truck. By now, the red Gumbies were running after me. I had their full attention, but it was too late to abandon the mission. I had to finish it, whether it ended in failure or success. I could see the creatures gaining on me reflected in the truck's side window. No time to hesitate, no second guessing. I pulled the driver's side door handle. Click, it was unlocked. Yes, I had a feeling that it would be. Why would such monsters ever bother to lock their vehicle when they knew the terror that they struck in their victims? No one would be stupid enough to try. No one except for me. The heavy metal door swung wide as I climbed into the truck. "Please be here, please be here." I searched the cabin. It appeared normal. There was the speedometer, a CB radio, and an ignition switch. But it was empty. Shit. I slammed the door shut and locked it moments before the Gumbies arrived. And then I continued searching for the key. There had to be a spare somewhere. I checked behind the visor, in the glove compartment, the center console. 3 loud bangs. One of the Gumbies slammed a fat, rubbery hand on the side window. I could tell that it was angry, its black hole eyes sore and bleeding. I heard screams issuing from inside the monster's head. Human screams. The sounds were awful, but I couldn't let them distract me. I reached down onto the driver's side mat.
Help me.
A familiar voice pleaded. It was Mikey's voice, coming from within the red Gumby's head.
You'll destroy me if you leave. You'll destroy us all.
There was another chorus of ear-splitting screams. More banging on the windows. All 3 Gumbies surrounded the truck cabin, trying to get in. They were desperate now. It had to be in here somewhere. I felt beneath the driver's seat, and my fingers grabbed something small, cold, and metal. A key. Success. I jammed it into the ignition, turning it over. The engine rumbled to life, vibrating my seat. Aha! I looked at the Gumbies still trying to claw their way inside. "So long," I screamed. Then I stretched my leg to reach the brake and pressed hard on it as I shifted the gear into drive. My childhood dream of being a truck driver had come to life. I pushed down on the accelerator, and the truck jolted forward, leaving the red Gumbies behind, leaving the whole rest stop behind. I strained to pull the massive steering wheel, bringing the tanker truck onto the highway. It was a straight road with dense forest on either side, barely any traffic, but that didn't matter. The truck just barreled straight through all other cars on the road like a ghost. I kept my foot down on the accelerator. I was already a mile from the truck stop, something that would have been impossible on foot. I've done it, I thought. I'm finally leaving the waiting. But the highway soon transformed into a white asphalt road, running through a black, frozen desert. There were no other cars on this strange path, no rest stops, no exits, no gas stations or fast food restaurants, no sign of civilization, period. I'm still on that highway now, searching for an exit, any exit, a way out, a way home. It's nighttime here, but there's no moon, and there are no stars, just inky blackness overhead, with the occasional wisp of icy clouds. The tanker truck's yellow headlights provide meager illumination, revealing an endless landscape of desolation. A cold wind whips across black dunes on either side of the white road, whipping up tufts of sand like rays. I don't know if I've been driving for 40 minutes or 40 years. This road is endless. At times, I pull over and I shut the engine off. I wondered if I should have just carried on with their game, let the red Gumbies have their new victim, let them drain me of everything. All the memories of my parents, my family, my friends, school, road trips, Mikey, even my memories of the waiting, all turned into fuel. Perhaps they would have drained all the pain, the anxiety, the depression, the loneliness. But those thoughts only last for a moment. I shed a few tears and then banished them, and I'm back on the road again, driving towards a destination unknown.